History Project. My topic will be the integration of New York City public schools. And your name, please.
My name is Helen Bogan.
And what was your profession in New York City?
I was a paraprofessional working in New York City schools.
And what's the difference between a paraprofessional and a licensed teacher?
Well, the licensed teacher is in charge of the classroom, and we make lesson plans together because I have to teach part of the class, the children who are behind um, and who have disabilities. So sometimes I would work with them in the classroom. Sometimes I would have to take them out of the classroom as a group.
Okay. And were all of your classes integrated?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And they didn't separate the students that you took out by race, correct?
No, no.
Okay. And what were the conditions of the school that you attended or
And
taught at? Excuse me.
um, in what way are you speaking?
In terms, well, I guess we can start academically in terms of the curriculum.
Well, academically, like in New York, I found that the schools were more progressive than they are here in Baltimore. For one thing, we had more programs, like, say, if the child was behind, there
Right.
was more material for that child to work with. And so I found that there was more, how would I say, I was able to get more done with the child,
Okay.
yes. Then, after I moved here, um, it was kind of difficult because a lot
Right.
of times you didn't have the materials that you needed, and a lot of the people in the school were not dedicated.
Right.
And plus, a lot of the children here are born in one neighborhood, they live in one neighborhood, so therefore they go to school in that neighborhood. So, in that way, the schools are segregated.
Right. Okay. And what were the conditions of the material that the childrens were exposed to
Here or in New
in New
York?
York? Excuse me.
In New York, well, most of the time we had all the material that we needed
Okay.
because if I remember correctly, just about every year we got new materials and new programs. The only problem was getting acquainted with a new program.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you never had to worry about getting like old rundown books or
No,
anything like
no.
that. Okay.
Mm-mm.
And were the conditions of the schools different based on neighborhoods or like you were saying?
Yes, yes. That I found that the same in New York.
Mm-hmm.
The conditions were different depending on the neighborhood the kids were in. So, as far as I'm concerned, that was another form of segregation
Right. And
because the kids who were in better neighborhoods got better quality. They got extracurricular activities,
mm-hmm.
and in the inner city schools, we didn't have a lot of the activities that those children had.
Right now, the children in the inner city, were they did they have the opportunity to go to a school outside of, I guess you would say, their zone?
No, no.
Okay. Now, was this a law or just that's just how things were during
That's
that
the
time?
way the Board of Education had set it up.
Wow.
Mm,
Okay. So you had to stay within your zone,
right.
regardless of if you had the means to travel to another school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And was this for everyone?
As far as I know, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And in 1961, in New Rochelle, New York, their school system was forced to desegregate by the ruling of a federal judge. Are you aware of any other places in New York that were forced to desegregate?
No,
Okay.
because even as a child,
Mm-hmm.
I went to integrated schools.
Okay. So overall, you would say that the transition went well, although there was still some issues with race.
Yeah, yeah. Um, to a degree, because I still feel like the children got left behind in in the in a lot of ways, because if they could have gone to better schools,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the teachers just did what was on the curriculum. They never put anything extra into it, to
Right.
motivate the children. And I believe that in schools that were not in the inner city, there was more motivation and
Right.
more activities that they could have gotten into that would make them really want to come to school.
Okay. And in terms of staffing, was that integrated as well?
Yes.
Okay. And did it reflect on the neighborhood that the school was in, or was it completely however they were hired?
However, they were hired.
Okay. And in New York, the average salary for a teacher was $5,174 a year.
Hmm.
And for you, is that about correct, or did you? What was your salary
Well,
on
my
average?
salary was about half of that.
Okay.
And then, as long as I continued to go to college, depending on how many college credits I had, they were steps in salary.
Okay, so it
Mm.
wasn't like today how you had to have a certain degree. You could have just some college, and that was more in terms of accreditation for your job.
Yeah, but
Okay.
you had to, in a certain number of years, you
Mm-hmm.
had to have your AA.
Okay.
That was mandatory.
All right.
Mm.
Um, I think. Now, do you think that conditions improved from the time that you were a child in school to the time that you became a professional?
Hmm. To a degree, yeah. But I think about some of the activities that we used to do, because we had music appreciation and all kinds of things
Mm-hmm.
like that when I was a child. And by the time I was an adult and was working in the system, a lot of that had faded. But it had a lot to do with parents too,
Okay.
because parents were not as, should I say, demanding of their children
Mm-hmm.
as they were when I was a child. They let their children get away with more. So if the child knew that he could get away with things, then that just made it harder for us
Right.
in the system to control that child, or to get him to motivate him and to get him interested in what these lessons were in school.
And how did parents feel from what you observed in terms of the school being integrated?
I don't even think a lot of them noticed.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
that was definitely good compared to how things were before.
yeah.
And compared to when you were teaching then and how the educational system is today in New York and in Baltimore,
Mm.
how do you feel the difference is today?
Well, I've been retired now for 8 years, so it would be kind of difficult for me to say. Um, the only thing that I think about now, Christine, my granddaughter, she
Mm-hmm.
works in the school system now, and it seems as though things have deteriorated, because there's parent power to the point whereas a lot of times you can't really talk to the children or whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
because the parents want to know, what did you say to my child, or it's
Right.
your fault if the child doesn't learn, not putting any emphasis on that, what they have to do at home with that child, that
Right.
they have to sit down and work with that child at home. So therefore I think things have deteriorated. And a lot of the teachers now only do what's on the curriculum. They don't put any effort into doing anything better.
All right. Well, thank you very
One
much.
other thing that I'd like to say about integration and segregation and all that,
Yes.
when finally black studies are being introduced in the school
Mm-hmm.
because we learned about um, American history, European history, but it's like we were excluded
Right.
from all the history, world history. We were excluded,
Right.
and the children were made to feel like you don't exist.
Mm.
So I'm glad that our African American heritage education is finally happening.
Right. Yes. And speaking of which, did the school curriculum put any emphasis on Black History Month?
No. Well, Black History Month, yes. They brought out some posters every year, the same posters of baseball players and basketball players and
Okay.
whatnot, and Harriet Tubman, and I think that was it.
Okay.
And these were black teachers, who did not really teach
Right.
black history during that month. They just those same posters every year.
Wow.
Hmm.
Well, thank you very much. This was very helpful. And this is, oh, can you state your name, please?
Helen Bogan.
And Paris Turnquist. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.